Hey kids, it's your old pal Mr. Sketchy. I just got back into town. Funny story, I ended up in the wrong town. I ended up in the next town over because apparently the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. Who knew? You know, I spend so much time abroad that, in other countries it's different. It doesn't work the same way. Anyway, I'm a very international man. So I ended up in the next town over and immediately met the sheriff there. But it turns out he hates the sheriff here as much as I do. And he gave me a ride right back into town. So, yeah, it worked out pretty well. So anyway, I'm going to show you a sketching video. And, while I was out wandering in the woods, in the wilderness, I realized maybe I should teach some of my wilderness survival skills. So as a free bonus today, after the sketching video, you're going to get to see a little wilderness survival road knowledge demonstration. So look forward to that, and we'll see that in a little bit. Okay, let's watch the sketching video. Alright, so today we're going to be working on drawing a human figure. We're going to start by drawing a simple mannequin, like you see on the right, and then we're going to add in details to try to make it look like our reference image on the left. Okay, so here's what our finished mannequin is going to look like. So we're going to start by kind of sighting some of these angles for the shoulders. So I lay my pencil down at the angle the shoulders are at, and then move it over to the paper. I'll mark the angle in, and now I'm going to measure the width of the shoulders. So I'm pinching the end, and then I'm going to mark where the end of the shoulder is here, and then where the other end is. So I've got the same angle and width. Now I'm going to use my pencil again to measure the angle and the width of the hips. I'm going to look to see where the hips are positioned under the shoulders. I'm going to draw those in. Alright, so now I'm going to turn the torso into sort of a simplified bean. Alright, so we got wide shoulders and wider hips, and then kind of a narrow waist in the middle, like a bean or a peanut. Kind of paying attention to where the bottom edge of that is and working up towards the top. Here's our hip angle. Check that again. It all looks good. We'll kind of finish up the right side of our bean here. Draw that in a little darker. Now we feel confident. And then I'm going to work up the middle, drawing the white line in. The white line is like the opposite of the spine. So if you can imagine a line going straight up your torso through your belly button, that would be the white line. So when we draw a figure, we want to kind of keep in mind where that line is. So here's a cross contour at shoulder level, and here's a cross contour at hip level, helping us kind of remember the volume of our form here. I'm going to darken in this bean a little bit. And then work my way over here. Alright, so this is kind of my final bean shape here. Next I'm going to add the neck. So we remember the neck is basically a cylinder. It's not super long most of the time, so it's kind of a short cylinder. And we'll add the head shape, which is going to be kind of like an inverted egg shape. And here's the top of our egg shape. There we go. Now we're going to define the center line on the head here. And this is really important when you start placing facial features. So we want to have the center line going up the middle. And then we're going to also mark some cross contours curving across the head, showing where the eye level is, and the nose level, and the mouth level. Now darken in the outline here. then we'll darken in the neck here. Okay, so next we're going to add in the hip joints. We're going to represent that with just sort of a ball shape. And that's representing the joint where the hip pivots and turns. So we'll put one on each side. Just kind of a simple circle. Now I'm going to mark out where the elbow joint is. So I'm going to mark the elbow first, and then I'm going to add in the upper arm. So there's the elbow, there's the shoulder joint, here's the wrist. Okay, now we're going to connect them. We're going to draw in that upper arm. It's kind of a cylinder, keeping all the shapes really simple. And then the forearm is another cylinder. And the hand is kind of behind the head, so we don't have to worry about that hand. Now we're going to mark in the key spots for the other arm. We got a shoulder joint here. We got the elbow right about here. And then we got the wrist. Oh, let's connect these first. Upper arm connecting them. And then the wrist is right up here, real close to this elbow. Just down a little bit and a little to the right. And we'll draw the hand in. So we're going to break the hand into being like two planes. One which is the palm and one which is the fingers. Keep them simple. And now we'll connect the wrist and the elbow together. Something to note when we look at these arms, the upper arm and lower arm are approximately the same length. But if you look at the figure, they look like they're all different lengths, the different upper arms and forearms. And that's because of foreshortening. Some are coming at us and some are moving perpendicular to our point of view. Alright, so I added the knee joint, and then the thigh. The knee's just a ball, and then the thigh's a cylinder. And then we have the lower leg, the calf and shin, coming up in front of the thigh here, like this. I chose this pose because it's kind of a complex pose. There's a lot of different things going on with the limbs. I'm just going to draw like a kind of pointed toes and connect them to the heel there. Alright, so now we're going to draw the other thigh. We'll start with the knee. But first I'm going to sight the angle. So the thigh moves up at a very slight angle. So we'll put the knee about here. We'll move that up a little bit. And then we'll connect the thigh. And we're just drawing that as a simple cylinder. Right. Okay. And then we're going to draw in the ankle. So I'm kind of measuring where the ankle is relative to the hip there. It's like right below the hip. So I'm going to try to position it there. And then I can connect it by drawing in the shin. Alright, so now I've got the knee and the heel or the ankle connected. Again, we're just keeping the mannequin very simple. Just simple shapes, mostly cylinders and balls. And then we got the hands and the feet. Those are kind of strange shapes. So again, I'm drawing in some pointed toes and then just kind of connecting them. Okay, our finished mannequin should look something like this. Alright, so at this time I'm going to go back in over my mannequin to add details and shading. I'm starting with the chair. I'm just keeping the chair nice and simple. I'm not worried about drawing too detailed a chair. Now I'm adding in hair, ear, shading, eyes. When I draw the facial features, I try to think about how to represent them with simple shapes rather than trying to draw every detail. So you just kind of pay attention to the shapes that stick out to you and kind of draw those in. We'll talk more about faces later. That deserves its own kind of video, or probably a couple of them. Anyway, just work through on top of the mannequin and add details and shading. Don't forget to add the shadow shapes in. That's very, very important. So you want to have shading on the left side of the face, down on the neck, through that shoulder, underneath the arm that's on her knee. You want all those shadows. Those are going to give you a little more form to your drawing. So you use the mannequin as a guide for kind of placement and positioning, and then just add the details on top of the mannequin. Now I sped this up so that you can kind of see me do this a little bit quicker, and you'll have a little more time to work on your own without having to try to watch me at the same time as you're working. But that's the basic idea. Alright, so I'm looking at all of the creases, folds, edges, and kind of laying them out using the mannequin as a guide. And this is only like a 45-minute drawing maybe. So we can keep things fairly simple. Things don't have to be perfect. It's perfectly reasonable to have, low level of detail, or for things to be a little bit off when you're doing a quicker figure study, especially when you're just starting out. Alright, so we're kind of building the pants. We're paying attention to the outline of the pants, that contour edge, and we're also paying attention to the folds that create important contours in the cloth. Alright, after you get one pass completed, and you've got your lines drawn in, it's a good time to look at the shading and to start adding shadows. So anywhere that I see a shadow, I want to give a little bit of shade to it. And I like to work from kind of broad, big things down towards details. So at least in this step, don't worry about the shadow shapes being perfect. Just trying to shade in the general area where the shadow is. And just try to get like the main shape. And then as you have more time, you can adjust those details. So you can see there's a main shadow on her body. There's one under the arm right here. And then we have them kind of on the lower and left-hand side of things. The light's coming from up and to the right. So we can use that to kind of figure out where to look for shadows. And then reference the image to see what kind of shapes those shadows make. Drawing a little more chair detail there. And now I'm just kind of working on details. So I'm just kind of looking around, seeing what stands out as not quite being there, and then sketching it in. Adding more shade. Her suit's kind of a gray color, so we can add a little bit of a tone to that. She has darker skin, so we can add a little bit of tone to that. When we do that, we want to make our shadows stronger as well. So if our shadows are now the same tone as our light areas, we need to go a little bit darker on the shadows. If there's anything you notice that needs to be fixed, you can also erase it. We're just trying to increase the level of detail for as long as we have time. And just kind of pick out the things that you notice. So a lot of this is about like looking at your drawing and comparing it to the original and then making revisions. Most of us do not get our drawings right the first time, and we have to adjust them as we go through. Alright, there we go. Alright, here's my finished drawing. Maybe you didn't get this far, that's okay. Maybe you got farther than Mr. Sketchy did, that's great too. We got as far as we did, but I hope you learned a little bit about how to draw a figure and simplify that process. We will see you next time. Stay tuned for bonus content. Hey kids, stay tuned for bonus content from my new Patreon series on wilderness survival. Wasn't that great, kids? Yeah, so I'm going to be opening up a Patreon channel where I share all of my knowledge on surviving on the road. So anyway, if you are interested in that, look for that. Find that on Patreon. It only costs $47 a month. But it's information that could very well save your life. So anyway, I hope you consider subscribing to that and keep watching these sketching videos. Don't forget to put your $5 into the can. It's been moved out behind the Applebee's now. So it's under a bush. It's like tucked up in there, I guess. It's the best way to describe it. Just put your $5 in there and we are square. Anyway, so I think that should be a good permanent home for the can. All right, kids, we'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye. All right, kids, here's my drawing again in case you want to catch up. And we'll see you next time on Sketching with Mr. Sketchy. Bye-bye.